All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is August, I think it's 14th, something like that sounds right. August 14th, 2020. This is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority being conducted in Albany. Present in Albany is Chairman Bradley. Participating remotely by video is Commissioner Fane, who can be seen on the video. We also have Commissioner Ford, who's joining us by telephone. Commissioner Ford?
Present and accounted for.
Great. We also have General Counsel Meyerhoff, who's participating by video, and myself, Secretary Donahue, here in person in the Albany office. We have 4 items on today's calendar. There are requests from Counsel's office for emergency orders of summary suspension. Chairman, unless you have anything else, we'll get started with the items.
Yeah, I have nothing else.
All right, then. The first item is 2020-00929 WWW. It's NASA OP 1299168. The licensee is 777 Beach Street, LLC.
Okay, good afternoon. Stephen Armstrong on behalf of Counsel's Office, supported the summary suspension of this licensee doing business as Mio Posto, located at 777 West Beach Street in Long Beach. The premises is licensed as a restaurant. It is immediately adjacent to a residential neighborhood. It was first licensed in March of 2017. The premises is 1 floor, total maximum occupancy of 289 persons. There's a sit-down restaurant area as well as a large open space. It's labeled on the diagrams as a catering room / dance floor, though they're not permitted to have dancing. As to the executive order violations, on Saturday, August 8th, approximately 7:44 p.m., officers from the Long Beach Police Department, along with a building inspector, conducted a visit to the premises. Yesterday, I spoke to Inspector Richard DePalma of the Long Beach Police, who was present during this visit. Upon arriving at the location, officers heard loud music being played from speakers that had been set up outside. There were approximately 20 people congregating and smoking in front of the premises, and again, this is immediately adjacent to a residential neighborhood. The officers then entered the premises and spoke to a manager named Salvatore Brancato, asked him to turn the music down, which he complied with. They continued inspecting the interior of the premises. Inspector DePalma opened a door to what appeared to be a private event room and observed at least 100 patrons, none of whom were observed wearing masks, not exercising social distancing and congregating together. Many of these patrons were observed with open alcoholic beverages. There did not appear to be any food in this room. In fact, according to Inspector DePalma, there weren't even tables or chairs set up for dining to occur. The manager told Inspector DePalma that these patrons were there for a surprise party. Now, in addition to the 100 or more patrons observed in this private room, there were numerous other patrons observed seated in the restaurant dining area. Inspector DePalma said there were at least 200 patrons total inside the premises. The premises had previously been issued summonses by police on 2 occasions in June and July for improper operation of their outdoor dining area. We also received several complaints from community members regarding noise and lack of social distancing during that same time frame. As I said before, the licensee's maximum occupancy is only 289 people, and per Department of Health guidance, premises in areas that have entered phase 4 and are permitted to allow on-premises dining may only do so if they keep their capacity they keep the premises at 50% capacity or less. And that 50% number also requires that patrons wear masks where appropriate and exercise social distancing, neither of which were happening in this case. You had exactly this sort of environment, numerous patrons indoors, in close quarters, without masks, that the governor's executive orders and accompanying guidance were put in place to prevent. And by operating in this manner, the premises clearly poses a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare. And based on this record, I ask that the members vote to summarily suspend this license pursuant to Section 413 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. Thank you.
Stefan, let me just add for the members that having already been visited twice by law enforcement and informed of other violations, for this licensee to conduct its business this way with 100 people not even seated in their catering room demonstrates that they're willing to go well beyond the law in the hope that they don't get caught. And this is an example of what happens if you let places that are willing to break the law go. God forbid the virus spread to those 100 people and they went out into the community, which is what we've seen in so many states around the country. This is a very strong case for a suspension and a cancellation, in my view. Thank you.
All right, with that, Commissioner Fane, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Then Chairman Bradley, do you have any questions?
No question.
All right, then we'll proceed with the vote. First, Commissioner Fane.
As Council Meyerhoff, mentioned, this licensee is really just running his business and hoping not to get caught, which is surprising because Long Beach is quite a tight-knit community, and that this location is very close to residents, as Mr. Armstrong told us, and so they really should be more careful about how they're operating their business, with loud music playing outside, with a congregation of over 50% capacity, people inside, no social distancing, no masks, and also some evidence of alcohol service with no food. And all of that together said that this licensee is committing multiple violations of the governor's executive order. Since they've been warned multiple times and continue to do this, they're clearly a waste of valuable investigative resources for the agency. And due to imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to suspend this license.
All right, then Commissioner Ford, your vote.
This licensee is clearly intentionally violating laws, guidelines, and executive orders right now for all the reasons that Commissioner Fane just stated. So I vote to summarily suspend as well.
And Chairman Bradley.
I vote to summarily suspend the licensees basically operating with no restrictions, as if it was last year, not this year. We're all familiar with the current situation, and he looks like he's doing nothing to ensure that his customers or his employees remain safe, so I vote to summarily suspend.
All right, then the next item, 929XXX, Faro del Pacifico Pupericia Restaurant, Inc.
So before you get going, I have to recuse myself from this as I was at the location last night. I'll return shortly.
Yes, Stephen Armstrong again on behalf of Council's office, this time in support of the summary suspension of this licensee doing business as Faro Sports Bar and Grill, located at 3247 Fulton Street in Brooklyn. This premises is licensed as a restaurant, first licensed in May of 2012. The licensee's sole principal is Susanna Regalado. As to the executive order violations, yesterday, August 13th, from approximately 7 to 7:40 p.m., SLA investigator Charles Cervalli conducted an inspection of the premises. Upon arriving, he observed several patrons standing and congregating in front of the premises, as well as at least 5 employees who were observed not wearing proper facial coverings. Photos of these violations are included with the report. He also observed the trade name Gustoso Bar and Grill posted around the premises, which is not an authorized trade name. Investigator Cervalli spoke to an individual at the location named Pedro Luna, who identified himself as the owner of the establishment. He told Investigator Cervalli he had purchased the restaurant for approximately $4,000 from Susanna Regalado, the principal we have on file. He stated he was operating the premises under a corporation he had set up called Gustoso Bar and Grill Corp. According to the Department of State website, this corporation became active at the premises on March 6th of 2020. Mr. Luna made this admission on camera. We have no record of any corporate change application ever having been filed for this licensee. A renewal application was submitted on March 27th, 2020, with Susanna Regalado still listed as the sole principal. So it's clear this licensee made no effort to comply with SLA rules here, and we have Mr. Luna admitted to availing the license. Investigator Cervalli also observed numerous other violations, including the license not being posted, an unlicensed security guard working there, warning signs not posted, no books and records on the premises, numerous building and fire code violations, including selling hookah without a permit. In this current COVID-19 environment, it's especially important to have a vigilant owner to supervise and manage the premises to ensure the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the staff, patrons, and the public. It's clear from the numerous violations observed, both of the governor's executive orders and the alcoholic beverage control law, that both the licensee and Mr. Luna, the admitted availing party, failed to exercise any supervision over the premises, much less the high degree that is required during these times. And based on this record, I ask the members vote to summarily suspend this license pursuant to Section 413 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. It's Gary. Let me just add that in this environment, when we know there's an availing taking place, I don't know that we have a choice but to suspend the license, because we can have no confidence that someone who's been entrusted to supervise the premise will even be there. Here we have the admission from the availing party that he purchased the place for $4,000. He sets up a corporation in early March, and a few weeks later, we get a renewal from the seller, our licensee, who's now not at the scene. Add to the problem that this new operator, who doesn't have a right to be there, has some serious problems in following the law as well. And I don't see, certainly we think this is a compelling case for a summary suspension.
All right, with that, Commissioner Fane, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions either, Tom. Thank you.
All right, then I'll proceed with the vote. Commissioner Fane.
As Council Armstrong and Meyerhoff both pointed out, this licensee is no longer in control of the establishment. We have that evidence in writing, on camera, in many different ways. And so because we no longer know who is in charge at this location, there's clear to public health, safety, and welfare. And I vote to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote.
By virtue of the fact that the actual licensee is nowhere to be found and the license is currently being availed, I vote to summarily suspend it immediately. Thank you.
All right, so the next item we have is item 929. Why? It's New York OP 1316327, St. Dipna's LLC.
Thank you, Secretary Donahue, members of the authority. Good afternoon. Robert Buckley, the council's office. The premises has a trade name, St. Dipna's, at 117 Avenue A in New York. New York, the part of Manhattan would be known as the East Village. The most recent executive order task force inspection was on this past Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, in the early evening from 5:30 p.m. to 5:50 p.m. The investigators observed tables that were set up in the street in front of the location. There are the photographs show the areas where the tables are enclosed by a barrier with plants. And the investigator notes that apparently people were sitting at this table, but with no drinking alcohol beverages, apparently with plastic containers with lids and straws, but no apparent food items. There was one table which had two women drinking, and when the investigator approached the table, one of the women said they had just ordered one hot dog for the two of them. Also, the investigators observed persons getting up from tables and going to apparently a takeout window at the front entrance and getting alcohol beverages and returned to their seats, again, with no apparent food order. They approached an employee who was unidentified, but also manager, Luis Sandoval, and asked him particularly about the indication that these persons had not ordered food. As we've seen, I guess, in other situations, Mr. Sandoval just produced a pile of receipts and had the answer that some people were ordering their food by cash and ordering their alcohol beverages by credit or debit, but the investigator said there was no receipts showing cash sales of food. So clearly, the premises has been serving alcohol beverages without the required food availability. The premises was issued a license on August 8th of 2019 as a tavern with just a limited menu, but hot dogs were not part of the menu submitted as part of the application, as well as the licensee is serving alcohol beverages for apparent takeout, even though they're being consumed apparently on this outdoor area without a food item. Executive Order 202.3 requires liquor drinks are served to go to be also accompany a food order, and 202.52 requires, again, an applicable, an appropriate food item. This is not Mr. Sandoval's first encounter with a task force. On August 5th, 2020, the week before, Wednesday, August 5th, excuse me, at 8:30 p.m., an investigative task force, again, found multiple persons purchasing drinks from, again, the same takeout window, and as the photographs show in the report, persons were standing up, not social distancing, congregating outside the premises, and consuming the alcohol beverages, again, with no apparent food items. And a notice of pleading has been issued with regarding that. And on the August 5th date, Mr. Sandoval was given a notice of warning. Going back again briefly to the August 11th date, the most recent date, it doesn't seem that Mr. Sandoval was given a formal warning, but just notified or informed, as the investigative report says, of the food availability. So we have now two dates in which the premises were inspected. There's a third date under case 143334. This will be on June 18th, 2020, a Thursday at about 7 p.m. The executive order task force observed numerous persons in front of this location at 7 p.m. on this June 18th date. Present that day was one of the LLC members, of Brendan McElroy. I think, as the members recall, this would be shortly after the executive order allowed outdoor drinking. And again, beginning of the summer, there was particularly these 2 weekends in 2 or 3 weekends early in June, where there were, in parts of particularly Manhattan, numerous places where people were scattered in front of locations. This is a busy area. It's on the west side of Avenue A, and across the way from the premises is Tompkins Square Park, and the investigative report indicates that they described Mr. McElroy as being very cooperative. Apparently, he was overwhelmed by all these persons in front of locations who were consuming alcohol beverages, and he tried to apparently disperse this group. But again, he was reminded, as the investigative report says, reminded of the social distancing. And the report seems to indicate that there were so many people on the street, on the sidewalk, and there were other locations. It wasn't clear whether these persons were patrons of St. Timothy's. But in any event, Mr. McElroy was warned or advised on June 18th. Mr. Sandoval was warned or advised, particularly warned on August 5th. And again, the investigators returned on August 11th, and premises seemed to be in the same condition, where, again, persons were able to purchase drinks from a takeout window and then consume them, whether it be seated or standing, congregating. All these things contribute to violations of the executive orders that I've recited, and also that these executive orders are there in place to try to prevent the transmission of the coronavirus, and with these people congregating outside the location, and the licensee, again, on notice that this is a violation, and they continue to do so. Clearly, they're not supervising the location properly. Again, the premises and its application indicated that at all times the premise be supervised and managed by a principal, manager, or both. And even though, again, there was either the principal or Mr. Sandoval there 2 times, it doesn't seem to be in compliance with the executive orders that they should be well aware of. And with that, the council's office refers this matter to the members for a emergency order summary suspension.
Thank you, Bob. This is Gary again. This is a case that illustrates why we should consider having a 3-strike rule. This is a location that didn't figure it out after one problem and warning, for which they received a notice of pleading. Well, I'm sorry, the first warning, a second warning, all about drinking with people outside, and now a third. I don't think we can expect this place to get its act together and be entrusted with the serious responsibility of being open and serving the public in this pandemic. Thanks.
All right then, Commissioner Fane, do you have any questions? Commissioner Fane, you're muted. Do you have any questions?
Sorry, I don't have any questions.
No questions? Okay. Commissioner Ford?
In the notice of pleading, it says that they violated Executive Order 202.3 regarding inside service. Were they serving inside? Did I miss that?
No, Commissioner, the 202.3 violation would be serving drinks without a food order. The original 202.3 just had, as you know, takeout and delivery, which is still in effect. So the theory of that is that persons were being served drinks on this August 11th date from this takeout window, and they should have been served a food order and taking out their drinks.
It says service inside the premises and or takeout and delivery. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Right, so in other words, if they were being served these drinks and then seated at a table, then they would have to have a food order. And again, the licensee, the manager, Mr. Sandoval, seemed to be aware of the food requirement because he had, again, tried to buffalo the investigators by throwing these receipts at him that didn't show actual food orders with the beverage orders.
Thank you.
Commissioner? All right. Any other questions, Commissioner Ford?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No questions.
All right, then I'm going to call for your votes. First, Commissioner Fane.
As Council Buckley and Mayor Hoff have described, this location is clearly a problematic location during this COVID time. This licensee has committed violations of the governor's executive order and have already submitted a CNC to settle one set of charges, but on the other hand, it's continuing to violate the executive orders by allowing a takeout window, lots of people congregating in front, drinking with no food. They have clearly have notice and they've been given warnings. It's an ongoing problem. It needs to fall under the 3-strike rule because this licensee is clearly thinking that he can just pay and continue to play, and that's not where we're at. This location is a waste of valuable investigative resources. The agency is tired of chasing after people to comply, and they're clearly disregarding the governor and also this authority, and due to immediate threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote.
I would only add that, correct me if I'm wrong, this premise has only been licensed for a year, August 8, 2019. Is that what you said, Mr. Buckley?
Correct, 8/8/19, yes.
All right, so that's quite the record to achieve in a year's time. So I vote to summarily suspend.
Chairman Bradley.
I vote to summarily suspend. It's clear that this licensee has no intention of getting the message that we tried to send him gently in June, and the same behavior is occurring now, and even in the face of that, he's lying to the investigator, indicating that the patrons are buying drinks on credit while paying cash for their food, which belies the common sense. So he clearly cannot be trusted to operate going forward during this pandemic, so I'm voting to summarily suspend.
All right, then the next item, 929ZZZ, King's OP 1301 493. Licensee is El Ambiente Restaurant Patio and Lounge, LLC.
Good afternoon, members of the authority. Alex Lloyd for Council's office. Council's office submits the subject licensee, El Ambiente Restaurant Patio and Lounge, located at 2896 Bolton Street, Brooklyn, New York, to the members of the authority to consider an emergency order of summary suspension of its retail on-premises liquor license pursuant to Section 413 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. The licensee was issued an OP license on June 13, 2018. It is licensed to operate as a restaurant The sole principal is Danny Rodriguez, and the restaurant is located in a mixed-use area. On August 13, 2020, the licensed premises was visited by SLA investigator Stravali. While on the premises, he noticed and recorded multiple violations of the executive orders, including at least 8 employees, including waitresses, a bartender, a security guard, a valet, and a kitchen worker, either improperly or not wearing masks at all. He also noticed at least 80 patrons were dining in what was either an outdoor patio with a fixed roof or an indoor area. It was not clear whether this roof could be removed or was temporary. It was clear that what was holding up this roof was permanent, and there were buildings or fences on all 4 sides, creating what was clearly not an open air area envisioned by the Department of Health guidance. Additionally, there were at least 12 patrons congregating on the sidewalk in front of the licensed premises, not social distancing. And indoors where the 80 patrons were sitting, there was no social distancing going on. Many were not wearing masks if they were standing up, and all of the tables were clearly not 6 feet apart. In addition, Investigator Stravali spoke with the security guard. He identified him as having an expired security guard license. There were also 5 fire code violations, including extension cords being used as permanent wiring, fire extinguishers not properly mounted, not having up-to-date service tags, and a utility room with a water heater filled with waste, both paper and combustible, and an obstructed fire extinguisher. Additionally, there was an emergency exit light not illuminated. Finally, there were 2 SLA violations. One, the licensed premises was serving pre-mixed sangria from the bar, and it's clear from all of these executive order violations and the additional violations that the licensee was failing to supervise the licensed premises. At this time in the year, after months of executive orders being in place, SLA guidance being in place, Department of Health guidance being in place, it's clear the licensee cannot claim that he was unaware of the executive orders and the guidance. The executive orders and guidance were designed to prevent the spread of COVID-19, a deadly virus. This licensee clearly cannot be trusted to follow the law. At this time, there is no more imminent risk to the public health, safety, and welfare than to permit indoor dining in enclosed areas, to permit patrons to ignore social distancing and mask requirements, to permit employees to ignore mask requirements, and to permit numerous other SLA, ABC, and local regulation violations that would place patrons, employees, and the community at large in danger. Therefore, Council's office respectfully requests that the members summarily suspend this license.
Thank you, Alex. It's Gary again. We would have brought this case to the members for a summary suspension, whether this was indoors or not. There are multiple violations that show no respect for the executive orders, people congregating outside, no one's wearing face masks properly, the tables are close together, etc. I will say that this room is unusual. It has a wood frame as beams across and down the side, so that is clearly a fixed frame, although it seems to be covered by a canvas type substance. But then it's completely decorated inside as if it is a permanent fixture. From my review of this, I would consider it to be inside. In fact, there don't even appear to be any windows, and you've got 80 people in there, which is a serious risk in this environment. But whether that's, someone might argue, I thought this was outside or not, is really not relevant. There are multiple violations here that would make this a summary suspension case, whether it is or isn't outside. And just wanted to make that clear so that the members understand the basis on which we're bringing you this case. Thank you.
All right, with that, Commissioner Fane, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, Tom.
Chairman Bradley.
I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for your votes. Commissioner Fane.
This licensee has committed multiple violations of the governor's executive order by allowing loud music to be playing to attract attention, and multiple patrons standing outside the establishment in a crowd with no face masks and no social distancing. This licensee has also breached many other ABC laws regarding security guard licenses, fire safety issues, and also pre-mixing. This location in theory would be overcrowded with just 37 people because occupancy is 37, but they have 80 people inside with employees wearing no masks serving them or not improperly wearing masks serving them. This is definitely a breeding ground for COVID spread and an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, so I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford.
I think Commissioner Fane pretty much covered it on all points, so I vote to summarily suspend for the same reasons.
And Chairman Bradley.
I vote to summarily suspend as well. Based on the pictures, I don't think there's even an argument that this is inside. There's clearly a door. It's surrounded on 4 walls. There's clearly a roof, whether it be canvas or not. It's supported by beams of 2x4s that looks like it's connected to the main building. There is no way that I would consider this outside, and certainly not outside dining as considered in the guidance put out by DOH or SLA. The fraud, I do have a question regarding the security guard license. Did he present a fraudulent security guard card?
He did present a fraudulent security guard license to Investigator Stravali while on the scene. I then confirmed with the Department of State security guard licensing that he was a security guard, but that his license had expired in 2018.
Oh, so we don't know if it was, well, this says expires in August. His card that he presented says expires in August of 2020. So what you're telling me, that's a forgery?
Right. So he had a real license that did expire in 2018, and then the license that he showed Investigator Stravali was a fake license that claimed that he was still a security guard and that it was not expired yet.
So that just heightens the fact that this is, everything going on in this place is shady. And it's a risk to the public health, safety, and welfare. I'm going to vote to summarily suspend.
All right, thank you. With that, I have no other items on today's calendar. Chairman, do you have anything else?
I have nothing else.
With that then, I thank you all, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.